Hello everybody, welcome to Snyder's Inc. And today we have got a top 5 unknown. This is 5 Eerie videos with disturbing mysteries to creep you out. We're gonna get right into it, ladies and gentlemen. Hit the like button, subscribe button, comment thing down below. Let's go.
"2023 has been a very interesting year when it comes to stories of true crime.
That's one way to put it.
And in many of these cases, investigators were able to use video evidence, an invaluable tool, during their inquiries. These videos were captured by CCTV security cameras, body cameras worn by police officers, and in some rare cases, footage taken by members of the public while a crime was being carried out. But despite this, many of these cases remain unsolved. Number 5. During the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic that affected virtually every country in the world, many people were left without jobs as quarantines and lockdowns were put into place by the governments of the world. Some people saw this as the perfect opportunity to start a new business or to look into alternative ways of earning a wage, since they would be sitting at home anyway and needed to care for their families and loved ones. Many of these businesses weren't successful in the end, either because of further restrictions regarding lockdowns, or because cash flow became a problem and left these business owners with no choice but to wait for the danger to pass so that they could go back to work. But there are some businesses that did succeed, one of which is a restaurant located in Drakeholes, Nottinghamshire in England.
Duck. That's a choice for a name. I've never thought I would listen. I don't know about me. I don't think I'd ever go to a restaurant called the Mucky Duck, man.
The owner, Harriet Boland, opened the business in 2020 and included many of her family members in the day-to-day running of the restaurant. Currently, she still owns and operates the restaurant, which is called the Mighty Duck. But in September of 2023, she had to deal with a very strange and unforeseen circumstance that ended up costing her a lot of money. On the 17th of September, at around 11:30 a.m., CCTV security cameras recording the outside courtyard of the restaurant captured a bizarre and quite unbelievable event that Harriet is still trying to get to the bottom of.
Okay.
Someone living close to the restaurant heard a commotion at the building, and they called the police when they realized that someone was in the process of destroying its walls with a massive construction vehicle. When officers arrived, they found that the building was in complete disarray, but the culprit had already fled from the scene. Luckily, Harriet had CCTV cameras installed, and investigators immediately checked the footage to see what had happened. In the footage, a construction digger was captured driving up the restaurant's footpath and speeding towards the building. It can then be seen driving over a bench and smashing into its front wall, causing serious...
What exactly would cause someone to just randomly take a digger and drive it into a building? What reason would you have to do this? Also, why is this not the first time I've seen a construction vehicle used to destroy or take or steal or do something stupid with it? Like, what the hell is going on in 2023? Y'all losing your minds.
damage to the building. It's unknown who was behind the wheel of the digger, and they've not yet been identified. But investigators are looking to catch the culprit so that they can be made to pay for the damages they caused. But the strange and scary incident doesn't end there. The driver then reverses, aims the digger at a different section of the wall, and rams into it again. The digger seems to get stuck for a few moments, but the driver manages to steer it free before backing up into the pub's lawn. The vandal then aims it further to the right of the restaurant and again drives it at speed, obviously with the intent of doing as much damage as they possibly can. The driver then backs up and smashes into the same wall twice more before choosing yet another area to crash into, which is near the restaurant's outside entrance. After watching the CCTV footage, investigators determined that the digger had been stolen from Clayworth, specifically Clay Street, which is about 2 miles away from the Mighty Duck. But they've been unable to find the person responsible. But it's likely that the same person responsible for stealing it is also responsible for driving the vehicle in the restaurant's footage. The digger struck the restaurant a total of 6 times, and Harriet estimates that the damage will come to around $200,000 or $250,000 US to repair. She also lost a lot of money due to the fact that the restaurant had to be closed for repairs. The 15 staff members who work at the restaurant were also badly affected, since they'll have no shifts to work until repairs on the building have been completed, which may take some time since the damage is extensive. Making matters even worse is the fact that the building dates back to the late 18th century and is a Grade 2 listed building, which means it's of special historical interest and should be preserved in its original state as much as possible. Police officers found the digger abandoned outside the restaurant and have stated that the culprit had an accomplice who joined the driver as they fled on foot. Nottingham police have stated that they're looking into every lead that comes in, and they're hopeful that the culprit will be caught and brought to justice in the near future. Pictures.
That was clearly a guy looking for destruction. He just wanted to cause some destruction to this restaurant. He had no actual reason to do this. I bet he didn't even have an issue with anyone there. He just grabbed this digger and just wanted to choose something. Maybe the restaurant didn't give him extra sauce or something. He got so cranky, they just lost it.
Pictures of the aftermath of the attack show a section of the building with gaping holes in it, one of which is the disabled access door, which has now been completely mangled and destroyed, but no one knows why. Harriet says she and her family have racked their brains to find an explanation for the bizarre incident, and they can only assume that someone wanted the restaurant shut down. But again, they can't understand why anyone would want this to happen, since they don't have any enemies. The damage to the restaurant.
You think you don't have any enemies. And that's the thing, everyone has enemies they don't know about. Everyone has enemies they don't know about. You will never truly know the enemies you have.
The restaurant was so extensive that its walls had to be held up with stilts until repairs could be made. Harriet has stated that she's offering a reward to anyone who comes forward with information leading to the vandals' capture. She added that up until the attack, business had been booming since she had managed bookings that she has now obviously been forced to cancel. Images from inside the restaurant show the front doors at the disabled access section completely pushed in with bricks and lattices strewn between the tables and chairs. Detective Sergeant Jackie Price has appealed to anyone living in the area to check their doorbell and CCTV camera footage in case they managed to capture the two vandals as they made their getaway, or before they carried out the attack. Investigators added that they would like to make contact with anyone who knows of any individual who has shown an interest in the restaurant, its owners, or its renovation in recent times, since it could lead them to a possible suspect. If you know anything about this case, or have any information on the person who stole the digger from Clayworth,
I wish I did. I wish I knew anything about this. This is insanity.
You're asked to contact the Nottinghamshire Police by dialing 101 and quoting incident number 815 of September 27th. Alternatively, you can remain anonymous if you choose to do so by contacting the independent charity Crime Stoppers at 0800 555 111. Number 4. You would think that when someone's spouse goes missing, they would contact the authorities immediately. But this simply wasn't the case when 39-year-old Anna Walsh disappeared from her home in Massachusetts on New Year's Day 2023. Instead, her husband, 47-year-old Brian, waited 4 days, and even then,
I remember this one. This is a case where someone, because this guy clearly this husband's clearly the suspect here. He has to clearly be the #1 suspect. Because there's too much about him that's just odd.
Reported her disappearance to her co-workers rather than to the police. He's now the prime suspect in a case that's taken many twists and turns during its investigation. Anna had relocated to the US from Serbia when she was 25 years old, and after making the move, she found a job at the Wheatley Hotel, which is located in Berkshires. She and Brian met while she was cleaning his apartment, and the couple soon fell in love and got married. At the time of her disappearance, Anna worked for Tishman Speyer, a real estate company that's based in Washington. Due to her role there, Anna didn't always stay in the family home, but would often stay in Washington, where she owned a business and a vehicle to get around it. But she spent New Year's Eve at the couple's home in Cohasset, celebrating with family and friends. One family member would later tell investigators that she spent a lot of time sitting on a bar stool that night, sending celebratory texts to her friends, and she seemed to be in a good mood. Everyone present celebrated the start of the new year at midnight, but at 4 a.m. the next morning, Anna called for a rideshare to Boston's Logan Airport, since she had to attend a work emergency, but she was never seen again. Strangely, Brian didn't report her as missing, but rather informed her employer that he hadn't seen or heard from her for several days. On the 4th of January, 3 days after she had disappeared, her boss decided to file a missing person report when it became clear that something was wrong, since she didn't show up for work and didn't tend to the emergency that she was called out to. Investigators checked with the airport and found that she never boarded her flight. They were also unable to confirm whether she actually phoned for a rideshare, or if she ever left the house as Brian claimed. A search operation was quickly organized, and the areas around the couple's home were thoroughly combed through with no results. Investigators were told about Anna's house in Washington, and they searched this property as well, and found that her car was still there, but it didn't look like she'd been there in the preceding days. They then kept a close eye on her bank accounts, credit cards, and social media accounts, as well as her phone records, but none of these showed any activity after the time that she went missing. But then a few details started to emerge that made investigators take a very close look at Brian. When he was questioned about his movements in the days after Anna disappeared, he stated that he'd only been to the Press Juice bar in Norwell, where he took his son for a milkshake. But they quickly found that he was being untruthful when they discovered surveillance footage from Home Depot, Lowe's, and CVS stores in Rockland, and the purchases that he made while there sent alarm bells ringing in their minds. At the time, Brian was under house arrest after he was found guilty on charges relating to fraud. He had stolen a fake Andy Warhol painting and then attempted to sell it as an original, but he was allowed to leave the house when he needed to run necessary errands. In the footage, Brian can be seen purchasing 5-gallon buckets, towels, a mop, trash bags, a framing hammer, plastic sheeting, a hacksaw, hatchet, hazmat suit, and other cleaning supplies.
Well, that just sounds like I want to cover up a crime scene and I want to cover up and get rid of a body type ingredients. You definitely plan to cover up something, my friend. Don't tell me you don't. You don't buy a hazmat. Don't buy the hazmat suit for daily use, okay?
And when he was confronted about this, he stated that he had been doing shopping for his mother. This seemed very unlikely though, since there was just about no reason why his mother would need a hacksaw and a hatchet, not to mention a hazmat suit.
Thank you.
It was far more likely that he had bought these items to clean up a crime scene, and investigators grew ever more certain that Brian had orchestrated Anna's disappearance, and that he'd likely ended her life. And the damning evidence against Brian just kept stacking up. More surveillance footage was found where Brian could be seen behind a liquor store just hours after he had claimed Anna left for the airport. The store is located on Paradise Road, just a 5-minute walk from Brian's mother's house, and in the footage, he can be seen placing large trash bags into a dumpster. This prompted them to search the dumpsters, and what they found only added further to their suspicions. In the dumpsters, they discovered a hacksaw, a hatchet, and a piece of a rug, cleaning supply containers, and most damning of all, trash bags that contained biological material, as well as Prada boots, a Hermes watch, and a Gucci necklace that Anna was known to wear. Following this discovery, the couple's home was also searched, and in the basement they found more biological material, as well as a sharpened blade that had human tissue on it. Given that he had lied to the police about where he was on the day in question, he was charged with misleading an investigation, to which he pleaded not guilty. One would think that if he was responsible for ending his wife's life, Brian would have been more careful, but soon more evidence was found. Investigators checked the family's electronic devices and found that Brian had used his son's iPad to search the internet for terms that included how to dispose of a 115-pound woman's body. It would then come to light.
I'm telling you, all criminals are stupid. A lot of criminals, why would you look up shit like that? What do you think they're gonna do when they look that up and see that you search that? You think you're not gonna be a suspect? This guy is incredibly, incredibly stupid. He deserves to go to jail.
That Brian had attempted to manipulate his father after he had suffered a stroke But his father realized what was going on and cut Brian out of his will.
Ooh.
After his father passed away in 2018, Brian traveled to his home, broke in, and destroyed the will. But his plan didn't work as planned, as one of his father's friends had the forethought to take a photo of the will, which stated, "I hereby bequeath to Brian R. Walsh my best wishes, but nothing else for my estate."
Oh boy. Brian desperate for money. His father left him out of the will. Told him, nah, you're done. I wish you might give you my best wishes and that's it. And the guy tried to rip it up with a friend. Very smartly thought took a photo. Probably assumed Brian, because he was cut out, would try to do something like that. Brian definitely trying to do some up shit.
It was also discovered that he had started selling the items inside his father's home, but he's now been stopped from selling the house and has been ordered to reveal what he did with the items that are missing from the property. While the case against Brian was being constructed, it was revealed that he'd spent a long time in the Austin Riggs Center Psychiatric Hospital after he was diagnosed as a sociopath, and after he had pilfered close to $800,000 from his father during a home refinancing deal. One of Brian's friends stated that he saw the man's violent temper firsthand on one occasion when they were on holiday in China together. Brian had decided to smuggle antiquities out of the country, and when he was found out, he attacked the 4 guards that had confronted him. Brian tried to downplay the rift between him and his father, claiming that they had mended their relationship before he passed away, and that his father had asked if he could move in with his family. But his father's friends reported that this statement was a pure fabrication. Investigators now believe that Brian ended Anna's life at around 4 a.m. on the 1st of January 2023, and he then disposed of her body. Brian has now been charged with murder, misleading police, and improper conveyance of a human body, to which he pleaded not guilty. If he is found guilty, Brian will likely be sentenced to spend the rest of his life in prison without the possibility of parole, and at present, Anna's whereabouts remain unknown. Number 3. In September of 2023, 44-year-old Ebony Duncan was working at the Centera Springs nursing home in Independence, Missouri, before she mysteriously disappeared. No one has seen her or heard from her since, but her case got even stranger when it was discovered that another missing woman, 41-year-old Kiera Ransberg, was with her the last time she was seen. One of Ebony's co-workers, Amber Williams, describes her as a loving person who's very dedicated to her job at the home. She never missed a day of work and always tried to help out as much as she possibly could. But when she failed to show up for work on the 7th of September, Williams had a feeling that something was wrong, since it was very out of character for her to miss a shift, and even stranger that she didn't notify anyone that she would be coming in. Williams called Ebony's cell phone but got no answer. She then remembered that Ebony had been anxious in the previous few days, since her daughter was expected to give birth at any time, and she thought that Ebony may be at the hospital and had taken her phone with her, or understandably chose not to answer. She thought nothing more of it until Ebony's daughter contacted the home to ask if they'd seen her mother. She stated that she'd spoken to Ebony earlier that day to inform her that she was about to go into labor. Ebony said that she would contact her as soon as she finished work, after which she would meet her at the hospital, but she never received the expected call, and she immediately knew something was wrong, since Ebony had been excited about the birth of her grandchild. Williams immediately became concerned and went over to Ebony's house to see if she was there. She knocked on the door repeatedly but got no answer, and after she got back to work, police officers arrived after her family decided to report her as missing. Surveillance footage from the home was checked, and this is when an unsettling detail emerged. Ebony can be seen in the footage from outside the building, as she got into a silver 2015 Chrysler 200 that had been seen on the property before, as it drove out of the home's parking lot to park across the street. It was then discovered that the car belonged to Kiera Ransberg, who has also not been seen since the date of the footage. Investigators in the case have stated that they're looking for both women, but would especially like to speak to Kiera, since she could have information on Ebony's whereabouts. Williams would tell investigators that she last spoke to Ebony while they were at the nursing home at around 5:30 p.m. on the day that she mysteriously vanished. As they attempted to establish a link between the two missing women, investigators discovered that they did indeed have one thing in common: a man named Charles Smith Howell. Smith Howell had dated Ebony in the past, and at the time that the two women disappeared, was known to be in a relationship with Kiera. When Ebony's daughter contacted Smith Howell via a Facebook message to ask if he had seen her, he replied that he saw her on the night before her disappearance, but strangely, he added that he was sorry if something bad had happened to her. When Ebony's phone records were checked, they showed that it was still receiving GPS data until the 14th of September. It was eventually tracked and found in the possession of a homeless person who stated that they had found the phone on a bridge, but they couldn't remember where the bridge was located. It was also found that her phone was in the vicinity of 407 Mersington Avenue, the area where Ebony and Kiera lived after she was seen entering Kiera's vehicle. It was then tracked to an area where a license plate reading camera recorded Kiera's vehicle as it passed by, but the car has not been found as of yet. Smith Howell was arrested on the 14th of September after he was observed by police officers weaving in and out of traffic, driving at dangerously high speeds, and at times driving on the wrong side of the road. After he was taken into custody, his car, a black Buick Encore, was searched, and investigators found evidence that caused them great concern. Inside was a black bag that contained the title for the 2015 Chrysler 200 that belonged to Kiera. Even more unsettling was the discovery of Kiera's car's license plate, JH6C2W, and a firearm along with corresponding ammunition. Since Smith Howell had 4 convictions dating back to 2003, 2004, and 2005, he was a felon and was not permitted to carry a firearm, and he was immediately charged accordingly. On the 31st of October, the case took a further sinister turn when a body was discovered by cadaver dogs in a wooded area near East 83rd Street and Hillcrest Road in Kansas City. It was found that the body's height, hair color, weight, scars, and tattoos corresponded with Ebony's, and it was all but certain that the remains were hers. It would also come to light that Ebony had told a coworker that Smith Howell had threatened to end her life and that she was fearful of him. Investigators are still awaiting the medical examiner's report.
Is it possible that the other girl set her up, like brought her to him so he could kill her? Is that a possible thing we could look at here? That's my guess.
To confirm whether the remains belong to Ebony or not, but they're convinced that the report will do so. Although Kiera remains missing, investigators believe she may have had a hand in Ebony's disappearance and eventual demise, though this has not been confirmed, and at present they've stated that they merely wish to question her about the day that Ebony disappeared. Both Kiera and Smith Duncan are considered persons of interest in Ebony's disappearance, and investigators have asked anyone who has any information on the case to come forward, so that any possible leads can be followed up on. Kiera is described as having brown eyes, weighing around 150 pounds and standing around 5 feet tall. The Independence Police Department has asked that anyone who could provide further details on the case contact the TIPS hotline at 816-474-8477. Number 2. When 32-year-old Chelsea Grimm set out for a cross-country road trip in September of 2023, the last thing her family expected was that they would never hear from her. But this is the sad reality, and she remains missing today. Chelsea was traveling from San Diego to Connecticut to attend a wedding, but she decided to take her camera with her, do some work on an art project while she traveled. She planned to document the lost and forgotten people of the country, taking photos along the way. She decided to drive the 2,860 miles rather than fly to Connecticut because she wanted to bring her pet bearded dragon, Roxy, with her, and would not have been permitted to take it on a plane. After deciding to take on a long drive, she told her parents that she was taking a tent and a sleeping bag with her, since she may decide to do some camping along the way, but also that she may decide to stay in a hotel for a few nights depending on her mood. After 3 days of traveling, she made it as far as Arizona when she called her parents to say that she didn't think she could complete the art project on her own. She added that she had decided not to go to the wedding as planned and instead wanted to stay in Arizona for a few days so that she could camp out for a while. She made sure to mention that she would be camping in an area where there was little to no cell reception, and so her parents didn't expect to hear from her for a few days. But as time went by, they started to worry, since she hadn't been in contact for too long. It was later discovered that Chelsea was supposed to meet up with a friend for lunch at some point, but she canceled that appointment as well, though it isn't known why she did so. After it became apparent that she had gone missing, a police officer came forward to report that he had seen Chelsea on the evening of the 28th of September, after she was supposed to meet up with her friend. He produced body cam footage in which he can be seen approaching her car while she's parked outside of a war memorial, and he stated that she seemed to be distressed, since it looked like she'd been crying. When he asked if she was alright, she stated that she'd been taking photos of the soldiers who had lost their lives, and that it affected her emotionally, but that she was fine otherwise. She simply didn't want to drive while she was crying. She then told the officer that she would be staying in that spot for the next 15 to 20 minutes before getting back on the road. But during the interaction, she also admitted that she'd smoked an illegal substance earlier in the day, but he noted that she seemed fine to operate her car. He asked whether she would be staying in a hotel that night, but she stated that she hadn't thought that far ahead and was considering just camping out for the night. He then made sure to inform her that she wouldn't be allowed to camp within the city limits, and suggested that she spend the night at a nearby truck stop. She agreed and seemed keen on the idea of sleeping over at the truck stop, adding that she would be returning to the memorial the following day to take a few more photos for her art project. The officer told her that she could stay at the memorial for as long as she wanted, after which he left the area believing that she wasn't in need of any assistance, and that she would find somewhere safe to spend the night. A woodcutter also came forward to report that he had seen Chelsea in the Kaibab National Forest 2 days after her interaction with the police officer. He was concerned that she was by herself and walked over to her to ask if she needed any help. Chelsea stated that she was fine, and the man felt that she seemed like she was in good spirits, concluding that she didn't need any assistance. Chelsea's car, a Ford Focus, was found locked and abandoned by hunters on the 5th of October, close to Forest Service Road 6, northeast of Ashford. They noted that the car was abandoned in the middle of a dirt road, and that both tires on the right side of the vehicle were flat. It's been suggested that she either hiked out from this area, or that she may have gotten into a different vehicle, but this is mere speculation at this point. When her car was searched, investigators found that her wallet, sleeping bag, driver's license, clothes, and her pet bearded dragon were all missing, and it was presumed that she'd gotten out of the car willingly and had taken all of these items with her, possibly to camp out in the area, since there were no obvious signs that foul play was involved in her disappearance. Some people have speculated that Chelsea may have gone into the woods to end her own life, but her family has stated that this is highly unlikely, since she was always full of life and never showed any signs that she wanted to harm herself. They also made sure
Just because they don't show signs doesn't mean it's not possible. That's all I'm going to say. Just because there's not signs of it doesn't mean it's not a possibility.
to mention that her bearded dragon often rides around on her shoulder, and that members of the public should keep this in mind, in case they spotted her, since this would be a rare thing to see. Chelsea's father, Stephen, told investigators that she seemed a little uneven in the days before she went missing, but they put this down to the fact that she was having some trouble with the man that she was dating. He added that Chelsea seemed to be scared of the man, and they believed she actually decided to take the road trip so that she could spend some time away from him. He believes that this would have had an effect on her frame of mind, but doesn't think that this would have caused her to simply disappear of her own accord. Chelsea's sister, Sarah McCarthy Grimm, later revealed to investigators that her sister's ex-boyfriend had been creating posts on Facebook in which he claimed to be her fiancé, which simply wasn't true. He had also set up a GoFundMe page that claimed to be collecting money to aid in the search for Chelsea, but she believed this to be an attempt by the man to make some quick money for himself. Chelsea's father commended the efforts of investigators and searchers in attempting to locate his daughter, but as they were quickly running out of leads and areas to search, he decided to hire a private detective in hopes that they would be able to find additional information on her disappearance. He added that when an investigation like the one into Chelsea's disappearance no longer offers up any clues, it no longer receives as much attention as it did initially, and he felt that it couldn't hurt to see what the private investigator could uncover. Investigators are at a disadvantage since their investigation could only begin after Chelsea was reported missing, 5 days after she was last seen alive, and any number of events could have taken place during that time.
True.
Chelsea's mother has drawn attention to her daughter's tattoo since it's very distinctive and could help in identifying her. She stated that Chelsea designed the tattoo herself when she was still a teenager, and that it features an ivy vine with leaves on her left arm, as is evidenced in the police body cam footage, where she can be seen with her arm resting on her car's door. If you've seen Chelsea or have any information on her current whereabouts, you're asked to get in contact with the Coconino County Sheriff's Office at 928-774-4523. Alternatively, you can call Telly Townsend, the private investigator looking into her case, at 480-251-7373. Number 1. 45-year-old Dana Smithers' sister, Stacey Ann Smithers, described her as gregarious and always up for a good laugh. She was always full of life and energy, and her family comically enjoyed it when she contracted a cold, since this was the only time that she was calm and quiet. As children, Dana and Stacey were close while they were living in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, and they had a good childhood since they grew up in a resort community. As an adult, Dana had 3 children who she adored, and her whole world revolved around them. 2 of her children were adults, while her youngest, age 7, lived with her and her mother in Stroudsburg. She was separated from the girl's father, but still maintained contact with him, since they still have a friendly relationship. This is one of the reasons why Stacey believes something untoward has happened to Dana, since she's been missing since the 28th of May, 2022, without so much as a word to her children or the rest of her family, which is unheard of for Dana's personality. On the night of the 28th of May, Dana was at the Happy Hour Bar and Grill, where she was attending a festival with a few of her friends. Earlier that same day, she and her youngest daughter had been at the girl's father's house, where they just spent some time hanging out. Dana and her daughter then went to the festival together, and according to Stacey, were just walking around talking to people they knew and dancing to the music that was being played. When they'd had their fill, they walked back to Dana's house, and once there, Dana walked over to her best friend of 16 years, Tara's house, which is across the street, to ask Tara if she wanted to come over to hang out on her porch. Tara had also run into Dana earlier that day while Dana was heading home from work. Tara was on her way to the festival, and Dana told her that she would be seeing her a little later on that evening. They did indeed meet up at the festival, and Tara says that they had a good time before she decided to go home. She would only see Dana again when she arrived to invite her to her house, but they stayed at Tara's house for a while, and this is when Tara noticed something strange. She believes that Dana was nervous about something, since she smoked a cigarette while there, something she was only known to do when she was feeling stressed, but she gave no indication that something was bothering her. Tara was feeling tired since it was already 11 p.m., and so she didn't try to find out what was going on, declining Dana's invitation to come over and choosing to go to bed instead. Dana then left Tara's house, an event that was captured by her Ring camera, and this was the last time that anyone saw or heard from her. The next morning, Stacey received a call from their mother, in which she asked if she'd heard from Dana. When she replied that she hadn't, her mother stated that she was worried since Dana never made it home as planned. But this didn't cause Stacey too much cause for concern, since Dana had stayed out without notifying anyone before, as is the case with most adults. She did, however, think that it was weird that Dana's phone and keys were still at the house, since she always had those items with her wherever she went. Her purse and medication, which she'd been taking every day for the last 10 years, were also found at the house, and since the medication was important to Dana because it was helping her cope with a substance abuse problem, they started to become more concerned that something may have happened to her. The family held a tradition where they would meet up at Nobles Park every Memorial Day, and Dana never missed the gathering. But this year, she never showed up, and the following day, Stacey contacted the Stroudsburg Regional Police Department, who told her that there was no law against an adult disappearing voluntarily. When she hadn't returned home by the 5th of June, though, investigators decided to take a closer look at the case, and an official missing person case was opened. But right from the start, there was very little to follow up on, as no one had seen Dana after she left Tara's house. A search of Glen Park was only carried out on the 22nd of June, nearly a month after Dana had disappeared, and nothing was found, which was not surprising, given the time that had elapsed since she went missing. Investigators stated that they didn't believe foul play to be a factor in Dana's case, but by this time, Stacy had started to believe that her sister was deceased. This belief was echoed by Tara, who stated that Dana would never abandon her children, since she had a lot of plans for the upcoming summer. On the 25th of April, 2023, nearly a year after Dana's mysterious disappearance, their fears were confirmed when Dana's remains were found by a borough employee in a wooded area near Park Avenue. At first, it wasn't certain that they belonged to Dana, but the remains were compared to Dana's dental records, and it was confirmed that she had indeed been found. An autopsy was performed, but the coroner was unable to determine how Dana had lost her life, since she passed away long before she was found. Dana's family had received some closure, but many questions still remain. The case took an interesting turn when internet users contacted investigators to report that Brian Koberger, the man who's suspected of ending the lives of 4 college students in Idaho in 2022, had ties to Stroudsburg, and his parents were summoned to appear before a grand jury in Dana's case. Investigators made it clear that Koberger was not suspected of ending Dana's life, since he wasn't in the area at the time that Dana went missing, but added that he was considered a suspect for a brief period, until his alibi could be confirmed. It's not been revealed why Koberger's parents were asked to testify in Dana's ongoing case, but it is certain that he wasn't involved. There have been no further leads in Dana's case, and investigators, as well as Dana's family, have asked anyone with information to come forward by contacting the Stroud Area Regional Police at 507-421-6800. You can also contact Detective Robert Transu at 507-421-6800, extension 1027, or Detective Dan Knowles at 570-421-6800, extension 1046, with any information that could bring a close to Dana's mysterious case. Thank you, guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is it for this reaction video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Thank y'all for watching. I'll see y'all for the next one.